Kim, I'll let you take over.
All right. Well, today I actually have two quotes that I'd like to read. One is from the Dalai Lama. He said, "There are only 2 days in the year that nothing can be done. One is called yesterday, and the other is called tomorrow. So today is the right day to love, believe, do, and mostly live." And the other one is by Dr. Seuss. Um, Number one, today you are you. That is truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you. 2, why fit in when you were born to stand out? 3, you have brains in your head. You have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself in any direction you choose. 4, be who you are and say what you feel, because those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind. And 5, today I shall behave as if this is the day I will be remembered.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Thank you, Kim. Very, very nice. Okay, I'm going to let Dave Ancio introduce guest Stan and Linda Klein for us today. So Dave, and you're on mute, so.
Very happy to have Stan and Linda Klein, very good friends of ours, join our meeting today. They are finally full-time in Sun Lakes, so they've got the great experience of our summer, although Stan tells me that they've already been in and out in the summer, but this year it's going to be kind of full-time here, so we're happy to have them. They've been very supportive of our club, particularly the golf tournament, both of them. And so we're kind of crossing our fingers and hoping they might join us with our projects and with the club. So thanks for being with us, clients. We're happy to have you.
Outstanding. Agreed. Agreed. Thank you so much for joining us. Our membership chair, Christine Schultz, is not on this afternoon, but any follow-up questions, obviously you can work through Dave, or if you would like to contact myself, that is fine as well. A couple other items. Next one's a bit of a tough one, folks. Our Rotarian of the month for April, and this is the last week of April, we will have a new Rotarian in May, is Stephen Fair. Some of you are aware, and I believe many of you may not be, but Stephen is going through a really difficult period right now. This past weekend, Stephen lost his mom to a fatal automobile accident in southern Arizona.
Gosh. Oh, that's terrible.
And Scott and I were able to get about 90 seconds with him before social time started today. He is absolutely not fully rebounded from this very, very difficult situation yet, but he did want to let people know he is working and processing to get through this. He hopes to re-engage later this week and or early next week on Rotary activities or business, if you will. We both assured Stephen that he needs to take whatever time is necessary, and please reach out to anyone in the club at any time. We are here to help him in any way that we can. So please keep Stephen in your thoughts. He's, like I said, he is going through a very, very difficult period of time, and we all just need to pray a little bit and think of Stephen as we can. Thank you. Couple of other announcements in a similar vein, although this is a celebration of life for Shirley Langer. Our member Lou Langer, as you know, lost Shirley earlier this year. On the 8th of May at Mission del Sol Presbyterian Church in Tempe, there will be a celebration of life. His daughter asked me to go ahead and forward a link for people if they would like to attend to register. They are going to have COVID protocols in place and limit the number of people that are in the sanctuary and have masks, etc. But Lou's daughter wanted anyone in the club that would like to stop in at that to feel free to register and do so. So that link will be going out later tonight or tomorrow for any of our club members that would like to help with the celebration of life for Shirley Langer. Upcoming meeting next week, May the 4th be with you, as we say in Star Warsville. First Tuesday will be a morning meeting, and very pleased to announce that we will be back in Palo Verde for those that want to attend in person. The restaurant has relaxed their seating requirements, and so we will be 3 or 4 to a table. They still, again, masks are at your discretion, although they are encouraging people to wear a mask when they're not eating. And I would encourage everybody to check with whoever is sitting at your table and respect any requests that someone might have regarding wearing a mask. We will certainly have masks available. We will also have a hybrid setup for those that want to Zoom in next week, but I've given a head count estimate for 40 people for next week's meeting at Palo Verde. Breakfast/social time, 6:30 to 7, and club meeting from 7 to 8. Our candidates for Educator of the Year will be speaking, and really appreciate the work that Maureen Alger and committee have done to bring this to that point, if you will. Couple of other brief announcements, and then I'm going to ask Bill McCoach to introduce our guest speaker this afternoon. I want to thank and acknowledge Bill and Val Crump. They did a STEM project at Strong Foundation Academy earlier this week in person with, I believe, a kindergarten class. We've had very, very few opportunities to actually get into schools and do some of the work that we have traditionally done, but very, very thankful to them and so happy they were able to. Got a bit more time on our agenda next week, and I'll share some pictures, and Bill and Val might want to make a few comments on that. But I do want to thank them for last week. I will ask Bill McCoach at next week's meeting to go through the winner and positions on the 4-way speech contest that we held last Tuesday.
Bringing stuff up. I'm not in a mood to be confrontational, please.
Hang on a minute. I'm going to mute somebody. And then we will have a little bit more time and share photos from our tree celebration last Thursday afternoon. I just want to acknowledge the tremendous positive feedback I've received from people, including those at the district, on what a great event they thought it was. So at this moment, I will just thank Judy and her entire committee, and Marge as the program manager on that, along with everybody that pulled together to make that event happen. Thank you very, very much. And we will also, since Wayne Johnson, a member of our club who was part of that founding group back in April of 1986, Wayne plans on being in person with us at Palo Verde next week. We will do a little bit more on our 35th anniversary of our Rotary Club at next Tuesday's meeting. So I'll have a few more announcements near the end of the call, but I wanted to get through those right now. I would ask everybody, with the exception of Bill McCoach, who will introduce our guest speaker, as well as Joan, our guest speaker, to please stay on mute as we go through the presentation this afternoon. And Bill McCoach, over to you, please.
Okay, thank you, President John. Joan Neiman, daughter of a Holocaust survivor, will speak to our Rotary Club this afternoon about her father, Stephen Lehrman, and his Holocaust experiences of survival. Joan was born in Philadelphia in 1963. She is the youngest in the family and has 3 other siblings. Joan graduated from Arizona State University in 1985 with a Bachelor in Science and Biology. She has worked in organ donation, in vitro fertilization, and cytogenetics. She is the past coordinator for Generations After Speakers Bureau. Let's give Joan Neiman a warm Rotary welcome on Zoom.
Hi, thank you all for having me. Special thanks to Bill McCoach for reaching out to ask me to come and talk with you today. What I'd like to do is go through my presentation. At the end, I will leave time to answer any questions about myself and my father. I'm hoping some of you had a chance to see the YouTube video, because to hear what he went through in his own words is much deeper than my telling you what he went through second. As Bill said, my name is Joan Nyman. I'm the daughter of Stephen Lerman, a Holocaust survivor. Born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, February 21st, 1963. The youngest of 4 siblings, older sister, 2 older brothers. Now, in Judaism, we typically name after somebody who has passed away. I am the only one of my siblings who is not named after somebody in my father's family. I'm the first one in my family, even though I'm the youngest, to graduate college. That was ASU 1985, go Sun Devils. And as you have heard, I've worked in many laboratory and hospital settings doing a variety of different jobs. Now, some of the pictures you're about to see, I didn't even know existed till a number of years ago. My sister and my brother happened to go to the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C. And they were able to see what my father had donated. We didn't even know he donated anything. Fortunately, he did have my mom write the names on the back of the photographs for the people. Otherwise, we really probably would not know who they are. Here is a picture of my dad, and this was taken at the annual Yom HaShoah service. And typically, a survivor would walk down a processional and place the memorial candle at the end of the table. Now, this is done every April to basically commemorate the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz and the beginning of the end, so to speak. Next slide, please. Now, this is the only photograph I ever knew about growing up. These are my grandparents, Itzhak and Sarah, Aunt Shana Rivka, Uncle David, and my father, Stephen, is next to his mother, who's the smallest and youngest of all the siblings. My sister, Eileen, is named for my grandfather, Itzhak. My brother, Stuart, is named for my grandmother, Sarah. And my brother, David, is named for our Uncle David. Now, you might ask, why am I not named after somebody in my father's family? It was simple. My mother's father, my grandfather, passed away 10 months before I was born. So I was named Joan Lynn, and my cousin Joe Lane is named for Joseph Lazarus, because that's how we kind of roll. He keeps their name and memory going. Next slide, please. Now, my grandfather was actually in the Polish cavalry in World War I, and he was a prisoner of war. So what you're seeing here is the family he started before the war. Then after the war, he continued having more children. What you see here are 3 of my father's older sisters, Aunt Miriam, Aunt Bessie, and Aunt Goldie. Now, we're not sure if this is a cousin or not. Could be interesting, and I'll tell you why. My 2 aunts, Goldie and Miriam, may have been twins. I did some research on the Jewish genealogy site, and I don't have the date, but they were both born in the same year. Now, on the back of this picture, we have question mark cousin. One thing my father did not know is he actually had a much older brother who passed away before he was born. So not sure if this is a cousin, a friend, or actually his brother that he never even knew about. Next slide, please. Now, 2 of my dad's sisters were married and actually had families of their own. This is Bessie and David Jablonski, and Miriam and Mayer with baby Isaac, and I'm not sure of Miriam and Mayer's last name. Next slide, please. This is a document that actually certifies that my father was in concentration camp Dachau. Now, what I don't understand is how at his young age, because he was very young, that he was, and I'll put this in quotes, a political prisoner. Not sure how that happens at such a young age. Next slide, please. This is more documentations, and yes, that dapper young man was my father. It's from the U.S. Army, and it states that my father was not in one, not in two, but actually 3 concentration camps: Auschwitz-Birkenau, Dachau, and Oranienburg. Next slide, please. Okay, now if you don't know how much history going back, but from November 20th, 1945 to October 1, 1946, in the city of Nuremberg, Germany, the Nazis were trying for crimes against humanity in an international military tribunal. Well, my father actually went to see justice for his family and sat in the visitors gallery for 1 day of that trial. You can go full screen and then come back to the slides in a few minutes. So if you actually saw the video, you know that my dad's family, the immediate one from the first slide, was rounded up, marched out of town, and killed. Okay? He survived that. He didn't go, he refused. He survived living in the ghetto with his older sisters. He survived the cattle car transport. And not, as I said, not 1, 2, but 3 concentration camps. Okay. So the question remains, if the Nazis killed my father's family, took his house, stole his childhood, how did that affect me? Why was my childhood probably quite a bit different from yours? Now, my dad had an accent which was a little unusual in Philadelphia. Of course, here in Arizona, a lot of people do. And some of your parents or grandparents might have had an accent because they were born in a different country. But the question is, how many of those people actually had numbers tattooed on their arms because they were in concentration camps? So that set me apart a little bit. My father wasn't one to wear a long sleeve shirt, except obviously in the cold weather. So he never did hide the fact that he had tattoos on his arms. Now, as a kid, he tried to shield us. I didn't even know really what happened, except that his family, my family that I never met, were killed by the Nazis in World War II. I used to joke with me and say that he would sleep with one eye open. So maybe unconsciously, I knew that was a little odd. So I used to have this dream or this nightmare that I would be running and rolling down a hill and hiding behind a bush, and then get up and continue running, which I assume most people don't have recurring dreams like that. One of the things that I did dream about growing up as a kid was going to a social function at a synagogue or with a youth group or other groups, and finding that somebody had the last name of Lerman, and that my father didn't lose his whole family, that somebody had actually survived. But unfortunately, that was never the case. Now, I'm sure your parents may not have played with you as much as you might have played with your children growing up. My dad didn't play with us kids. He didn't throw a ball around or play a board game. That's because he didn't know how to play. He spent his childhood surviving Nazis in concentration camps. It was basically one day at a time for him. But he was, I would say, one of my earliest and first teachers. He taught me to ride bike without training wheels, but we never went for a bike ride together. One of the things he taught me, and it still works to this day, is how to properly paint a wall. You had to make sure everything was covered properly, how to tape around the baseboards, and things like that. As I said, he was a teacher and a great one, and now that we're painting some of the interior of our house, it's come in handy. Before the time of calculators and cell phones, I went to my dad one day and said, I'm not quite sure how to leave a 15% tip. I don't want to over tip, but if somebody gives me, good service. I was in junior high school at the time. I want to be able to tip them properly. And he taught me that 15% to do in my head, not with a calculator. So, go forward a few years, and I don't know if you know what Mensa is. It is the top 1% in intelligence. And one of my closest friends is in Mensa. And we go out to dinner, and we get the track, and she's trying to figure out how much of the tip everybody leaves. So she's got her cell phone out, and she's doing all her math. And I turned to her, and I don't remember the price, but I came up with it. She got done and said, "How could you do that? You're like 2 cents off." Well, my dad was a very good teacher. He used to tuck me in at night and do the typical, how was your day? What did you learn at school? And things like that. But his teaching continued from the time I was very young. He actually taught me to count from 1 to 10 in German. And I am sure that you were taught to count 1 to 10 when you were tucked into bed at night. Well, here goes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I wasn't sure if I remembered that correctly, that at one of these annual Yom HaShoah services, a survivor was there that I was seated next to, who happened to be from Germany. And he said, "Give it to me." And I did. He said, "You're perfect." So my dad taught me his lessons, and he taught me well. One of the things that my father did was, while he was still in Poking, Germany after the war, he went to night school to learn English. His thought was, how can I come to the United States speaking Polish and maybe a little German? How am I going to land a job and get married and raise children? Now, it's true, my mom was the one who usually helped us with homework and such, but my dad certainly was a smart man. He was a kosher butcher, a meat cutter by trade, but I honestly believe had he had the opportunities that we do here in the States, he could have been a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, somebody professional, because he was certainly smart, always reading the paper, watching the news. One of the things that we're taught as a kid is don't jump on the bed. Now, everybody raise your hands of those of us who ignored our parents and jumped on our beds anyway. Exactly. Well, I looked at my bed, the twin bed. I looked at my mom and dad's bed. It was much bigger. So guess where I decided to jump on the bed one day. So I'm having a whale of a time, and all of a sudden this huge alarm goes off in the house, just blaring. Unbeknownst to me, my father had put a panic button behind the leg of the bed. We lived in a row home in Philadelphia. There was the bottom level, the main level, and the level where we slept. And my father thought that if somebody broke in, at least we might be able to scare them off before they hurt us. So I doubt very many of you had a panic button installed in your house. One of the things that my dad did was hide jewelry and money around the house. And as they got older, my parents showed us time and time again where everything was in case something happened, so that we would know to get the money and the jewelry and everything else in case you needed quick cash or something to barter with. Now, my mom wasn't a Holocaust survivor, but she did these things with my father. He actually built a false bottom in the kitchen cabinet under the drawer. So if you pulled that out, there was a strong box in there with money and other things. Now, when he passed away, everything was divvied up, including that cash. Well, that cash is still sitting in my safe at home because who knows, maybe there'll be an emergency, or I haven't just decided yet where I want to spend that particular cash. My father also carved out niches in the bathroom vanities and the vanity in the bedroom, to a point where literally when they were showing us where the goods were, you had to get down underneath, put your hand up, and feel for an indentation in the cabinets, and there'd be a wad of cash there and a pouch with some jewelry. After my dad died, my mom gets a call from one of her friends, closest friend, and says, Steve told me he actually did some stuff in the air conditioning vents. So the house hadn't closed escrow yet, so we were moving mom closer. We had to drive from Tempe to 32nd Street in Union Hills with a ladder and check all of the vents. Well, it was probably in Philadelphia where he did things, because we didn't find anything in their house up there. In the mid-1970s, I'm not sure if any of you remember a miniseries called The Holocaust. It was on national TV and it ran for a week. My dad did not want my mom and I watching it, or my brother. The rest of the siblings were older and already left home. But my mom wanted to watch it, so I watched it with her. And that was, having never heard my father's story at that point, my first glimpse into what he survived. And I'll tell you, as I grew older and as I heard the story, the respect and the love for my father just grew exponentially. At some point in your lives, you have attended a family reunion. Raise your hands if you've ever been to a family reunion. Okay, you'll notice my hand is not raised. Well, it's hard to have a family reunion when half of your family was killed during the war, and my mother only has one sister. So, there was no family left to have a reunion. We were supposed to with my siblings and their children, and now their children supposed to get together last year, but because of COVID, that was obviously put on hold. But that would have been the first family reunion. So what my mom did is she invited the immediate family and the neighbors in for the Jewish holidays and for Thanksgiving, either for dinner or for dessert. So it felt my neighbors were as close to me as family. I was never taught table manners because when the food is hot and it's there and it's on the table, you sit down and you eat. My mother would say, start eating while she was still bringing the food to the table. Well, imagine my surprise, as I get to college and such and go out, people are looking at me strange because I'm not waiting for everybody to be seated, but you're not taught every lesson in life. Next page here. Now, if you saw the video, you knew that my father was sponsored by Uncle Ben, his uncle, who actually lived next door to him growing up. He was actually born in Uncle Ben's bed next door. And when the economy in Poland turned south, so to speak, Uncle Ben and a couple of his brothers, I guess, left and came to the United States before things got bad. Well, the first time I ever saw my dad cry, and he didn't cry very often in all those years, was when Uncle Ben passed away. I was only 10 at the time. So, I understand everybody is sad, you cry, etc. But as I got older and learned his story, I realized that was the only link my father had to his past. That Uncle Ben was the last link to his other family. Now, a lot of people will wear a cross if they're Christian. In Judaism, we wear sometimes a Star of David or a Jewish star. Well, I was wearing one around my neck. I must have been in about junior high or high school getting ready to go out. My dad was, where are you going with that? I said, just hanging out with my friends. Well, you take it off. No, I'd like to wear it. It's nice. Well, then you have to put it inside your shirt. The only time you wear it out is, when you're in synagogue or it's a wedding or something like that. What I didn't realize is he did not want me to get hurt. He didn't want somebody to single me out because I was Jewish and hurt. But back then, not really knowing his story, it was a little different. What is unusual is being the child of a Holocaust survivor and not having a curfew. Now, I realize I was the youngest of four, not as many photos or anything like that. But just because I didn't have a curfew didn't mean that my parents didn't have to know where I was going and who I was going with. Now, when going back a number of years, the different area codes to call from a 602 to a 480 was a toll call. So when we would leave my parents' house, we'd have to call and let the phone ring one time and hang up. That was the signal to my mom and dad that we got home safe and everything was fine. Well, God forbid you forget to call. Let me tell you, there was a call within an hour of leaving their house. Well, fast forward, because I'm not the only one who grew up like that. My brother, sister-in-law, husband, and I decided to go on a cruise. So when we docked back in California, my brother turns to me and he says, I'll tell you what, do me a favor and text me when you and Jeff get home so I know you got there safe. And I'll do the same to let you know Kathy and I are home safe and everything is good. So the apple doesn't fall very far from the tree. Now, how many of you ever saw a parent bring flowers or a greeting card for your mother or father? Because I never did. See, flowers bloom and die. They're a waste of money. The same thing with greeting cards, a complete waste of money. But it's ironic, when I met my husband and he started giving me greeting cards, and I've gotten greeting cards over the years. I guess I felt something special because I had every single greeting card he has ever given me in an envelope. Now, as a joke one year, my brother walked into my parents' house, my dad's birthday, with a 5-pound bag of flour to say, here are your flowers, Dad, and it's useful, Mom can make you some cake with it. We only had one family vacation growing up. What my parents did was, we belonged to a swim club. The idea was, what are we going to do with the kids for the rest of the summer minus the 1 week of a vacation? And the idea of the swim clubs was to keep us off the streets and out of trouble in Philadelphia. We never went to fancy restaurants, even later in years. My dad would never go to a fancy restaurant. Buffets, all the more power. You could get whatever you wanted. If you didn't like, you could go back for seconds, you could go back for thirds. Now, I thought it was really unusual for a Jewish family to get together every Christmas Day for dinner. My aunt, uncle, cousins, my mom and dad, my grandma, all over for dinner. And I never understood that until my mom asked me to take her to the cemetery when we went back to Philadelphia. And then I'm looking at my grandfather's headstone, and his date of birth is December 25th, 1899. And I say to my mom, you never told me my grandfather was born on Christmas Day. She goes, really? I thought I told you. Why do you think we had dinner on Christmas Day every year, even after he was gone? They just kept that tradition going. On June 11th, 2010, my father passed away. He had leukemia and he died of a massive stroke. Fortunately, he never felt any pain. He was just a little groggy, a little foggy. Well, my parents were getting up there. My mom's health wasn't the greatest, and they were going to move closer to us. So my dad says to me, can you do me a favor and take the blower, the leaf blower, and clean up the front of the house for me because I'm tired. So I get the blower out, and there are rocks flying all over the place. So I looked at my dad and I said, aren't you glad you sent me to college? Because if I was a landscaper, I would probably starve to death. And he had a good laugh. Next slide, please. So we get the next slide. All right. There we go. This picture was taken the day of my father's funeral. And I put this in here to make a point. Look at all those people. One man survived Hitler's Nazi regime. And that was his family the day he died. So you've got my siblings, our spouses. I'm sitting right next to my mom. You even have a great grandchild there in the front. That was the only one he actually got to meet, the one with great grandchild. Now, when my nephew got married, my father had passed away. And right before that, they asked if they could do a quick family service at my house. And at the time, unfortunately, that didn't happen. But they decided not to wait. Next slide, please. This young man is my nephew's son. Nephew's wife was pregnant at their wedding because they weren't wasting any time. This is Alexander Stephen Lerman. My father's namesake, so his memory and name lives on. Now, I'd like to open this to any questions for those who have seen the video, or questions about me or Judaism. If I don't know the answer, I'll tell you I don't know, but I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that I can.
Very good. Thank you so much, Joan. Let me get back to gallery view here. Really appreciate that. Raise your hand if you'd like to go off of mute and ask a question, and I'll try to manage this as we go through the next few minutes. Bill McCoach?
And Joan, maybe for those people that didn't see the video, maybe you could touch on how your father escaped execution in Auschwitz and then the following 2 concentration camps.
Well, my dad, like I said, was very smart for being very young. And when he got off the train at Auschwitz, they separated out his sisters and his nephew. And he was in line to go to the gas chambers with the women and the young kids. And he thought to himself, I'm not a little baby. I don't need to be here. So he actually ducked out of the line, hid behind the big tire of a truck. And when the Nazis weren't looking, he went and got himself in with a group of men, younger men. And they kind of hid him a little bit. And that's basically how he survived. In one of the camps, there was an officer when he was doing demolition, and he was sick. And this officer told him, look, I'm never going to hurt you, but I have to yell at you when the Nazis come by. And he actually got my dad some aspirin and an occasional extra piece of bread. And if it wasn't for him, my father probably wouldn't have survived. Now, I would love, and I've done a little research to try and figure out who this gentleman was, because I would really like to let their family know what the Yiddish word is mensch, what a good human being, their obviously grandfather, because he was an older man, was, or great-grandfather, because without a lot of luck and smarts and the help of a few people along the way, my father would not have made it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions? Kim Rector? Got to come off of mute, Kim.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. It's been amazing to hear your story. Was anything ever talked about specifically, or were there always just things like, where the money was hidden, that you got glimpses of what your dad went through? Did he ever talk at all about any of his experiences, or was it just kind of through life's experiences that you learned what he went through?
Okay. The first time I learned something, I was about 37, 38 years old. I went with my father when he went to talk to a school. I had never heard his words, because even though we had the video, we never watched the video He made one for the Spielberg Foundation, and we all have that video. But at the time, none of us watched it, and we were well into adulthood anyway by then. So it wasn't until much later in life that I learned the story. As far as in Philadelphia, I had no idea that things were hidden. Okay. It wasn't until my parents got up there in age and their health started failing that when we would go to visit, which was fairly often, that they would make sure that we knew exactly where everything was hidden in case something happened to them, because they didn't want to sell the house. One of the things that my father had saved, and didn't know this until, like I said, much later in life, my father owned his own little store at one point. He, sold meats and deli and things like that, package store. A lot of the people in the neighborhood would come in and pay him with silver dollars. And he was smart enough to cash out the silver dollars for dollar bills so that the drawer matched at the end of the day. And he kept those silver dollars, and we split them 4 ways. My husband, who's an accountant, took care of that the night before my mom's funeral, and basically divvied out the cash that he had and the coins that he had. My mom gave a lot of the jewelry away as she got much older, because she wanted to see our joy of getting the jewelry, not after the fact, but to enjoy it while she was still alive.
Thank you.
Very good point.
Yeah.
Time for 1 or 2 more questions. Anyone? I was thinking, Joan, could you see a shift in your father over, let's say, the last 30 years of his life, where he was at all more comfortable in sharing, or did he remain fairly consistent in terms of holding a lot in?
In the mid-'80s, my parents moved to Arizona and joined, at that point, it was called the Phoenix Holocaust Survivors Association. It's now the Phoenix Holocaust Association. And he started, I think, opening up later on in life. I know he talked to students at PD Community College and other local schools and organizations. But as I said, as a child, nothing. I asked my mother's sister a while back a question, and she said she remembers my dad saying, he put everything in a box and put it under the bed, and that was his prior life. And he was one of the, honestly, nicest men you could know. There's a lot of 2Gs that have some almost PTSD issues, but my dad was so unlike most survivors, other than worrying about our safety. He talked to the neighbors. He was a nice guy. As a matter of fact, we got back to my mom's house. The ambulance came in the middle of the night. And we got back home, and one of the neighbors walked over. She was a single mom, and she said, I saw the ambulance come. I said, it was my dad. And she said, is he okay? I told her, no, he didn't make it. And she burst into tears. She said, he was so nice. He would help me in with the groceries when I had the kids with me, or he'd bring my trash can back in from the street. A lot of survivors were kind of paranoid about things. And my dad really, other than taking some safety precautions, he never came off as afraid to talk to strangers. So.
Okay, very good, very good. Well, Joan, thank you so very much for being with us this afternoon. Thank you for making the video link available. I've watched.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. And Don, Preston, Scott will get with you, and anybody that has any trouble viewing that link, if they'd like to watch her father's interview, it's quite interesting and well worth the time. So, Joan, you're welcome to stay till the top of the hour if you'd like to. We're going to cover some other Rotary business. If you need to step away, we certainly understand that. And thank you again for your time this afternoon and sharing with us.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate the invite. And yes, if you get a chance, go up to that YouTube video and hear my dad's story in his own words. It's very poignant.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Shalom,
Bye-bye,
shalom.
everyone.
Yep. Bye-bye. Okay, team, we've got a couple of minutes left in our club meeting today. I do want to get to Happy Sad this afternoon, but I also wanted to come back and remind, had a few people join the call since we got started, that we are going to have next week's meeting in Palo Verde at the restaurant. The restaurant has relaxed the seating limitations that we were under at our first meeting. So if you'd like to go, and we'll have 3 or 4 to a table, and we're estimating a group size of roughly 40. You don't need to RSVP to me. If you're comfortable, just come. We'll have a way of checking off the list as to who is attending and handle the check-in process that way. And if you're more comfortable and you would like to Zoom, that will be available as well. Scott and I have coordinated, and he's actually going to get in there the afternoon before. We're going to set up a lot of the screen and test out some of the audio things so that we should be ready for prime time, so to speak, when Tuesday morning rolls along. And I'm really looking forward to next week's meeting. We will take some more purposeful time to recognize our 35th anniversary and the chartering of our club. For those of you that were not on earlier or weren't at the tree planting ceremony, I did speak with Wayne Johnson last week. He is planning to attend, and it's always great to have Wayne be at our meetings, and obviously he is quite anxious to be back in person as well. So if you have any questions on that, again, we'll make sure that we respect the mask request of our guests, et cetera, as we get back together in Palo Verde. With that, we do have a couple of birthdays, and I'm hoping both Lou Langer and Wayne will be there next week. Even though they're late April birthdays, we will acknowledge and recognize those at our May 4th meeting. Gene Cole, I see you're here, and from the background, you're back in Sun Lakes?
No, I am still in Wisconsin.
Oh.
Enjoying the snow and supervising some construction people. I'm flying back on Saturday though, hopefully.
Okay, well, I hope my records are accurate, but I have down that April 30th is an anniversary for you and Carol. And I won't say the year, but it looks like it rhymes with 57. So congratulations and very well done, sir.
You mean it has something to do with a Heinz 57 sauce?
Yes. Yeah, something like that. But that is terrific. Happy Sad, and again, reminder, next week's meeting, that is a morning meeting, and Maureen Alger is coordinated with the committee for Educator of the Year presentations. And we have got a little bit more time to delve into some of these other topics, share some photos from our tree celebration, the STEM project at Strong Foundations Academy. Mr. Coach and I and Bill Crump will announce our May Rotarian of the Month. And looking forward to next Tuesday's meeting. So,
and a huge kudos, shout out to Maureen for getting me the presentations in advance so that we can make sure that whether you're in person or online, that everyone will be able to see properly. Thank you, Maureen.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. All right, I got to get my notes here for a Happy Sad. Some people are great. Most people in this club are great. If for whatever reason they're going to miss a meeting, they let me know. And I got an email earlier today from Stan saying, I really plan on being on this afternoon, but I had such a great time on the glider that if I don't make it, please throw in 10 happy dollars for the experience with the glider. And Stan, it's great to see you. Personally, I have no desire to get in an airplane that doesn't have an engine in it, but that's just a personal bias that I have. So,
well, thank you very much. And if I may add one more happy dollar.
Yes.
Actually, it's going to be 5 happy dollars. Brother John mentioned earlier on, or teased all of you with some reference to something going on between he and I. For everybody's benefit, pre-COVID, Gary Whiting and John and I would get together over, I guess, to share an appreciation for a fine single malt, about once a month. And that stopped a year or so ago. And I'm pleased to announce $5 worth that Gary and John and I are resuming that practice this Friday afternoon in my backyard. So there you have it.
Very good. I would imagine if they didn't have the need to replenish inventory, it would have been happier than just $5, but I understand.
Well, the single malt lasted in the bottle the whole year.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Any other happy sads today? Bill Crump?
Yeah, I've got $5 happy. Mark Staples made it to Florida Sunday evening, so it was nice to know that he had a safe trip. Another $5 happy. I survived my birthday. I want to thank everybody for the cards and all the wishes. And $5 sad. I had my cousin's husband died from COVID last week in Michigan.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh,
Thank you, Bill. Judy Edmonds, waving from the beach. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've got 10 happy dollars, because I'm super happy. I'm just so grateful that had such a wonderful team that pulled off a great event last week. Our peace tree planting just went like clockwork, thanks to Marge and all the team. It was a group effort, and just a lot of people put in a lot of work. And it really showed. It was so smooth and such a great event. So 10 happy dollars.
Thank you, Judy, very much. Echo that. Was very proud and happy to be there. Okay, we're rapid fire here. John McCoy and then Maureen Alger. Unmute there, John. Unmute yourself, sir, and then.
Can you hear
there
me
you go.
now?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, I've got 10 happy dollars. Got a phone call Sunday afternoon from a grandson in the military who had just landed in Maine, coming back from a 6-month deployment to an area with a lot of hot sand and nasty people.
Great news, John. It's a wonderful phone call to receive. Maureen? Can you? Uh-oh.
Yep, there you go.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
$5 from me. I want to just shout out to Don and Bill and Val. They are helping my class with the Rolling Things STEM AWIM project. It is zero fun, I know, for them because it's virtual, and they are 3 people who love to get down and dirty with the kids on the floor and measure and roll the cars, and they're being such good sports, and my kids love it. So even though it's not as fun for them, probably, it is way fun for the kids. So they're so happy to hear another voice besides mine. So thank you to those 3, and yay for that program to continue even with our limitations.
Outstanding. Very well stated. Thank you so much. Any others today? Oh, I'm sorry, Kim Rector.
Yes, I have 10 happy dollars. So our little town of Enumclaw, Washington, they are just amazing. They have put, ever since COVID started, they put tents in front of the restaurants in our little town, put heaters in them, put tables and chairs. So all the restaurants that couldn't have regular seating, people could sit outside. They closed off the streets, and they've been doing that all through COVID, and it's kept our restaurants alive. And so it's very happy that they've done that, and we're just excited about it. So thank you.
Outstanding news. Very good. Very good. Terry, was your hand up or did the background just blink on me? Okay. No worries. Okay, folks, probably wrapping a little bit early today. Again, thank you for all that everybody does in the club. The turnout from our members last Thursday afternoon was tremendous, and I greatly appreciate it. Really looking forward to having well-attended service projects, social events, and activities as we continue to move away from COVID restrictions and feel more and more comfortable getting together in person. So with that, I'm going to conclude the meeting a little bit early. Everybody have a great afternoon. And to Stan and Linda Klein, thank you so much. Would love to have you in the club. Love to have you just visit the club for a while if you want to try us on for a little while. But thank you for taking the time this afternoon. And everybody else, be safe. And I look forward to seeing many of you in person next Tuesday. Thank you.
Thanks.
Leave.